أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن السادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلدين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. How are you all doing? Are you getting ready for next weekend in Atlantic City? I hope to see you all there. Alhamdulillah. Melody, Mariam, Sidi Nasir, Zahir, Samira, Abdul Bar, Nunu, Queen Sauda, Kashif, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Samira, is not the Islamic Unity Conference, it's the African American Islamic Unity Conference. Don't leave out nothing, or more properly said, do not leave out anything. Rahdeek, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing? That ain't on the flyer. Let me check. Hold on. Hold on here. It ain't on the flyer. You could have said that on the microphone. You ain't had to type that. You scared? Hold on. Flyer, flyer, flyer. Here's my flyer. Hold on. Oh, you're right. Subhanallah. Well, you should know. You made the flyer, right? Let me share it to my page while I'm looking at it. Yeah, you're right. Nah, I'll apologize to you when you tell me to apologize on the microphone, not that old punk typing stuff. Then I'll apologize. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dean Ali. Wa alaikum salam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Rahim. I'm happy to see all of you. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Let's get it. Alhamdulillah. We're in the last stretch of Beyond Bilal, written by our brother Mustafa Briggs. He's a gem. If you hadn't already, Allah bless that brother with something. If you don't know, I told you, you heard it here. Alhamdulillah. We left off on page 199 of his book. He's talking, we're in the middle of his section titled Daughters of Hajar, Female Scholarship in the African Islamic Tradition. Dean Ali asked a question. I don't know what that got to do with what we talking about, but anyway. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Fatima, Muhammad, Stanley, and Patrina. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah, let's get it. We're at the last paragraph where it begins Sheikh Ibrahim Niaz.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, I seek refuge in Allah from the rejected shaitan. May Allah bless our master, Sayyidina Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, companions, and give them peace. All praise is due to Allah, for He is sufficient for us. Peace be upon His slaves, whom He has chosen, as to what follows. Sheikh Ibrahim Yas of Kaolack, Senegal, who once stated in a public address in his native language of Wolof, women are something great and magnificent in the sight of Allah. So we should not neglect our female children. Should respect them. We should respect them because these girls will grow up to become the women who raise and train mankind tomorrow. Also instilled similar values in his daughters and ensure that all of them memorize the Qur'an and master the Islamic sciences. He once stated that there was no book that he had studied in his youth that his wife Asta Daoud Nias had not also studied. And their eldest child, Fatima Zahra Nias, who was trained alongside her sisters in all of the major Islamic sciences, stated that she remembers her father and teacher, Sheikh al-Islam Ibrahim Nias, ordering her and the other women of the community to withdraw from household chores and instead study works of classical history, poetry, and Arabic grammar with him alongside their brothers. This pedagogy is well reflected in her children, the late Sheikh Imam Hassan Sise, Sheikh Tiande Ilion Sise, and Sheikh Mahi Sise. Sheikh,
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Uh, there's a few things that I want to address here. And sometimes benefiting from what others have to offer often involves having an honest look at yourselves, ourselves. And I want to go back to where he said when you first start reading, women are something great and magnificent in the sight of Allah. So we should not neglect our female children. We should respect them because these girls will grow up to become the women who raise and train mankind tomorrow. We should read that over and over and over and over and over again. And we should make sure that we are not carrying any negative opinions of women from our Jahiliyyah into Islam, whether that be in thought or in practice. Because a lot of black men and black women have negative ideas about black women. Because many of us, we grew up and we seen the women who raised us do some foul stuff. Many of us have mommy issues. And it's not only the brothers, it's the sisters too. People always like to highlight one side of the thing. Do you know many women, black women who grow up in this society, they have beef with their moms? The reason why they're living with a boyfriend or living with someone else because their moms kicked them out. Their moms sees them as competition. Because we try to ignore or forget the fact that we're not growing up in a normal environment. This whole environment is crazy. And we're at the bottom of it. We come from a history of forced servitude and forced unnatural relationships with each other. So many of us seen our mothers grow up on survival mode when that level of survivalist thinking wasn't necessary. It's just all that they know, all that they knew. You'd be surprised. Many of these brothers, the reason why they treat their wives the way they treat them is because of mommy issues. When we get married as Muslims, our level of consciousness has to go way higher. You can't just, because many of us, we become Muslim and we don't express it, but we look at our Islam as an escape hatch from our black reality. I don't have to think about being black and all of that, all what that means here in America, right? Because I'm Muslim now. So I don't need to think about that, right? I don't need to think about the environment that I came from. Or if Allah protected me individually from any of these negative stuff, many of the people around me grew up like that. But I'm Muslim now, so I can ignore that. That's the way a lot of us think. We don't express it, but this is the way we think. And then we wonder why we grow up, become Muslim, get into marriages, and then we our marriages, even though we Muslim, they really resemble the relationships that we used to out in the Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic period. Got Muslims got the violent love. It's not love. I just made that up. It's not really love. Where, you know, they get violent with each other, break stuff, throw stuff at each other, and then the relationship is gravy. After that, it's all good. Then it boils back up to a head. It gets violent again, and sometimes even police is involved. And then after that, it's all good again. That's you know that's not normal, right? But for a lot of us, that's normal. I'll just give you one example. I was thinking about the women in the context of what we're reading. I was thinking about someone I grew up with. This person literally lived right across the street from me. The house was owned by this person's grandfather. So his grandfather had the house. And for a long period of time, his mother lived in the house with him. His mother was a prostitute. So I'm talking about maybe late 1970s and basically all through the 80s. This is what I'm talking about. I don't mean she was fast sexually. No, she was literally a prostitute. She had the wild colored wigs. I know that's normal now. Non-prostitutes wear, dudes wear wigs now. But we're not talking about now. We're talking about late 70s, 80s. So you see someone with a red wig or a blue wig or a green wig, that was automatically this person's a prostitute. And everyone on the block knew. Imagine, I want you to put your mind into you that child, the son of that prostitute. And all your friends on the block know. So I don't know if he ever knew his biological father, right? But Pop's not there. His mom's lived there, but she's absent. She's always home. I know, I lived right across the street. And so he knows that. Just imagine how traumatic that is for him. Now, compound the trauma knowing that little kids you growing up with know that your mom's is a prostitute. And for all of you who not black or maybe black but didn't like grow up in predominantly black environments, all of us made fun of each other. Every neighborhood had got a different name for it. Ranking, bussing, some people say playing the dozens and all that kind of stuff. We do that all the time. Young and old make fun of each other. So growing up with us in that environment, and his mom's is a known prostitute. Ooh. And it just comes out of nowhere. Like, we don't plan it. Like, hey, let's make jokes about each other. No, it just flows naturally, right? So we could be sitting around, and some dudes may be saying, yo, that girl a hoe. Come on, some other girl. And he's all in the conversation. All it takes is one, and it's coming. What you laughing at? Your mom's a hoe too. Like, really a hoe, right? And then all the jokes coming from everywhere. He got to sit there and take that. And if you get too mad, it's going to be a fight. And that's normal. Imagine him. And that's just one person. That's just one type of trauma. One type. We got all different shades and different types of trauma. Imagine him growing up and becoming Muslim. And the way he looks at women is his mother that he's seen growing up. What do you think his take on women's going to be? Unless he consciously identifies it and recognizes that all women are not like that and all that kind of stuff, he's going to have a warped view about women. I pointed all of that out and just gave you one crazy example. Just to show that, because a lot of us, we walk into the deen with these weird opinions and ideas about women and don't even realize that we're bringing them into Islam. So, like Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse said, you should respect them. Some people have a hard time respecting women and their mother. They have a hard time respecting women, possibly because their mother, or maybe their mom wasn't there. Maybe the mother didn't do anything. She was just too busy running the street, and grandmother and grandmom raised her. Back in the day, grandmom used to be old. I don't know what age grandma is now. What, 35? Because these women will grow up to become the women who raise and train mankind tomorrow. So many of us, we should have the mentality that, okay, I recognize what happened in my family personally, and just generally speaking among my people, right? I'm going to be a cycle breaker. This cycle stops here, it stops with me. So if your mother had any of these uh, crazy, unnatural traits that this environment breeds, you make sure that, okay, I recognize where I came from, but I'm going to make sure that my wife, my future wife, is not like that. You have to break the cycle. Trust me, coming from a man who has many children, your children, your biological children, will be a carbon copy of their mom and their dad. And those of you who have children know I'm speaking the truth. They will be a carbon copy of the biological parents, even if they never met one of those parents. Their character will mirror the parents' character. And if you have children, I already know you agree with me. I don't even have to ask you if you agree. You know. So be careful of who you choose to be your husband or wife and those children for the sake of those children. Why? Because you trying to be a cycle breaker. You're trying to break these negative cycles. It's been going on too long among our people where one of us become Muslim. There's too many of us where one of us become Muslim, and that's the beginning and end of Islam in our bloodline. That person took Shahada, they had children, their children, whether they grew up with the deen or not, at some point they leave, and that's it. There's too many of us like that. At some point, at some point, we have to start taking this thing seriously. And that includes breaking these toxic, negative, self destructive cycles in our families and our neighborhoods. And that begins with protecting our private parts, meaning protecting them, our private parts, from who we lawfully marry. You don't just marry just anyone. Because we want to see what we're reading about. There's no reason, now that we're aware of our environment and what Islam demands of us, there's no reason why they should be able to produce children like that and we can't. We can, we just taking the wrong stuff too serious. We need to begin thinking about our children before they're even conceived. And that involves thinking about who you're going to marry. And not only how much they know or how much they don't know, but what type of background they came from, how they was raised. And everything can't be ascertained by asking questions on a questionnaire. Some things you just have to sit and watch. So I'm going to ask Samira to read the paragraph that she already read again. I want us to stop. Oh, that's them over there. No, it could be us here. But we just have to be that serious. Do you think they were able to produce children like that with no effort? You know, we all know our own effort here individually. Do you think that the level of Islam, the way we're practicing it and the way we're steering and guiding our families, do you think we'd be able to produce children like that? Where we're going now, you already know the answer. So if you know the answer, what we have to do. We have to change. We have to upgrade. Unless you already given up. And if you've already given up, get away from me. If you've already given up on trying to bring in a legacy like this into your own bloodline and our collective family, if you don't even think that's a reality, you have given up, get away from me. Because trust me, if I would have given up, I wouldn't even be here. I'd be doing something completely different. The reason why I'm putting in work because I haven't given up, and I believe it's highly possible. So if you're already conceded to defeat and you just like this Islam thing, it ain't gonna work for my family and me or whatever. I'm gonna just pray when I can and just wait for the angel of death to take my soul. If that's your spirit, get away from me. I don't even like people like you around me. It's like a physical weight. If I want to lift weights, I go to the gym. All everything that we're reading about is possible for us here. But you have to be sincere to Allah. You have to ask Allah for it, and you have to put in the work as if it depends on you. Even though it's Allah the one who grants the tawfiq, but you have to work as if everything depends on you. Bismillah, he once stated, I know you read it already, but I want you to read it again, inshallah.
Bismillah. He once stated that there was no book that he had studied in his youth that his wife Asta Daoud Nias had not also studied, and their eldest child, Fatima Zahra Nias, who was trained alongside her sisters in all of the major Islamic sciences, stated that she remembers her father and teacher, Sheikh al Islam Ibrahim Yas, ordering her and the other women of the community to withdraw from household chores and instead study works of classical history, poetry, and Arabic grammar with him, alongside their brothers. This pedagogy is well reflected in her children, the late Sheikh Imam Hassan Sise, Sheikh Tidiane Elion Sise, and Sheikh Mahi Sise. Sheikha Rakaya Yas, Sheikha Fatima's immediate younger sister, is a known scholar and author who has worked with the Jimmy Carter Foundation on projects regarding female empowerment in Africa. Her books, Primary Education of the Muslim Children, Motherly Advice for the Muslim Girls, and Rights of Women in Islam, have spread across Africa and are used as textbooks and curriculums at traditional Islamic schools across West Africa. They have also recently been translated from Arabic into French and English. She was sent on multiple missions by her father to teach communities of men and women across West Africa, in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria. And in one letter that he wrote, he told her, I forbid ignorant and greedy people to travel. As for you, you are authorized. Wherever you step foot shall be a blessed place. In another letter, he prayed, may Allah bless anybody who takes knowledge from her, even if it is a single letter.
Allahu Akbar. Look at that. What this father, this big sheikh, is saying about his daughter. I just wanted to interject also. It dawned on me. I want to remind you something I've said here many times. These scholars, many of them, most of them, I say more than many, most of them. They learn Arabic without stepping foot outside of their West African countries. They learn Arabic not just on a basic level, but even a scholarly level without traveling and living in Arab speaking countries. We have an example of that. My daughter's husband, my son, never left Gambia, fluent in Arabic. If they can do it, we can do it. You just have to put in the effort. See, we lazy. We don't want it. It's too hard. We've given up already. I'm gonna keep bringing it back to us because I know we like to think, oh, that's them over there. You know, the situation's different. Yeah, the situation's different, but it's not impossible. They experience the other side of the coin of what we experience. We when I say we, us and our ancestors experience being displaced, kidnapped, and forced into slavery. When you take something out of some place, there's a void left in that place. And our ancestors were that void. So they took the human resources out of Africa, our descendants, and then once they was finished with that, they invaded it and just took it control militarily and then began the process of extracting mineral resources from the continent. And then once they got that on cruise control, they turned over control to those who would continue the process, the Uncle Toms and the sellouts from their own people. And this is a time period that we're living in right now. Most of the countries in Africa have been given quote unquote freedom of from colonialism in the 1960s. But the raw materials, the mineral wealth is still flowing from Africa to the rest of the world, and it's not benefiting the people that live there. So first they took our ancestors out, the human resources, and then they started, and it's still going on right now, taking the mineral resources out of Africa. And Africa literally right now is feeding the entire world. If you shut down stuff coming out of Africa, the world as you know it stops. Everyone knows that. If you don't know it, I'm telling you. If you stop stuff coming from Africa, say, you know what? We don't need nothing from Africa. Everything from Africa stops automatically. Anything, computer, cell phone, all that stops. You know, most of us live on our cell phone. So that all that comes to an end. And that's just one thing. We didn't even start talking about food and other minerals that don't go in electronics. Rubber, right? So many stuff, so many things, right? So just keep that in mind. You know, I said all of that to say that they've experienced a different type of whipping. You know, when you whip someone, you strike them, but then that whip comes back. And so we're both experiencing different aspects of the same whip. It's different, but the source is the same. And the harm is very harmful, even though it may be different. I often say, for example, that me and you can both have a cold, a common cold, and my nose may be running and I may be sneezing. You could even catch the cold from me, or we get it from the same person, and you could be congested and have a headache. The symptoms are different, but the problem is the same, the cold. So yeah, their situation is different. It's not exactly the same. They're still on their own native land and all of that, but they're not in control of their own land. Just like us, we're over here and we're not in control. But I don't want to start preaching, but this is possible for us. Continue. Sheikh Mariam Inyas.
Bismillah. Sheikha Maryam Yas, another daughter of Sheikh Ibrahim, is also Rahimullah, is also known in Senegal for her famous Quran school in the capital city, Dakar, which opened in the 1950s and has seen tens of thousands of students from all over West Africa and the Arab world study and memorize the Quran and other Islamic sciences. She was very close to her father, Sheikh al-Islam Ibrahim Yas, who used to take her along with him on his travels, allowing her to build strong relationships with many leaders of the Arab world, including King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia and Hassan II of Morocco. One of the greatest testaments to her dedication to education is the fact that her son, Usman Umar Khani, has held the Prince Al Walid bin Talal Chair on Contemporary Islamic Religion and Society at the Harvard Divinity School and the Department of Near Eastern Languages and Civilization at Harvard University since July 2012, and also currently serves as professor of African and African American Studies at Harvard. Sayda Ummul Khairi Nias was married by her father to one of his students in Niger, where she moved in the late 50s. She became renowned for her promotion of education, financial autonomy, and civic engagement through her 200,000 member NGO Jamiat Nasrat, Nasrat Dine and Nasrat Dine, a Muslim Women's Association.
Nasruddin. No, they're going to
Nasrat,
spell it different.
oh, okay. And Nasrat Dine, a Muslim Women's Association with nearly 100 chapters in Niger and branches in 8 West African countries. Lovingly known as Mama Kiata, her movement has been described as bridging the gap between the global feminist movement and Islamic feminists, and has recently earned her the Global Humanitarian Citizens Award from Tufts University for outstanding leadership and service to the global community in pursuit of a more just, equitable, and peaceful society. Sheikha Aisha Nias, named after her paternal grandmother by her father Sheikh Ibrahim Nias, is also another female scholar within the family. After memorizing the Quran under her father's Mauritanian students, the Rabbani family, she was married to one of her father's other Mauritanian students, Muhammad Abdullah Ould Said, renowned as one of the foremost scholars and poets in Mauritania currently, and she completed her education with him, mastering the Arabic language, Arabic jurisprudence, Hadith sciences, and commentary of the Quran with him. She later established an association named after her grandmother and namesake called the Mame Astou Dianka Association, which is a local organization focused on community development that organizes an annual conference in Coalac and has built an all-female academy for young girls who have memorized the Quran, which provides French, Arabic, and vocational education. Saida Umuhani Yas, one of Sheikh Ibrahim Yas' younger daughters, who is the daughter of his only Nigerian wife, Saida Bilkis Atta, and the granddaughter of Al Haji Abdul Malik Atta, the first Nigerian ambassador to United Kingdom, and the great granddaughter of Al Haji Ibrahim Atta, who was the Atta of Ikbira, a traditional kingdom in Kogi State, is also one of the most popular female scholars in Nigeria, where she relocated with her mother after the death of her father. She has established many Quranic schools and organizations and used to assist her mother in organizing an annual Maulid gathering, which would attract thousands of attendees from across Nigeria. She also has a very large social media presence and is very popular amongst the English speaking youth as she was born in London and attended English school and attained proficiency in the language. She was most recently interviewed by BBC Hausa about the legacy of her father, Sheikh Ibrahim Niasse. Her younger sister, Saida Rahmatullah Niasse, is also in Nigeria, similarly popular in Nigeria, and has established her own schools and organizations. You want me to continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Behind every great man, this spirit of female scholarship and leadership that we have just discussed on the African continent can also be extended to the diaspora. As if we look at some of the main Islamic movements and figures of Islam amongst Black people in the West, we can see that behind every great man or movement, there was a woman similar to the women we have just discussed. For instance, if we look to the Islamic Mission of America, which was established by Sheikh Dawood Faisal in 1939 and led to the Darul Islam and Muslims of America movements, it was established with the assistance of his wife's sister, Khadija. The couple ran what was New York City's largest and most prominent masjid for roughly 2 decades. Sister Khadija herself led an organization within the framework of the masjid called the Muslim Ladies Cultural Society, which provided women in the community with a model for active and engaged community leadership. She traveled with her husband across the country, speaking to groups of women as well as mentoring generations of Muslim women in New York City from the late 1930s until the early 1990s, undoubtedly having a measurable impact on the spread and development of Islam in America. Around the same time, Sister Clara Muhammad, known as the First Lady of the Nation of Islam, was introducing her husband Elijah Robert Poole to the teachings of Nation of Islam under Wardi Fard, who he then joined and succeeded. Elijah became the head of the Nation of Islam after the disappearance of Fard, and from 1935 to 1946, as Elijah fled death threats from rival temple leaders, was later incarcerated for sedition during World War II. Sister Clara Muhammad guided the organization in her husband's absence. In the Nation of Islam's earliest days, she helped establish and run the University of Islam and Muslim Girls training schools, which provided education for NOI members' children, and is considered one of the nation's early versions of religious homeschooling. When her son Wardi Muhammad assumed leadership of the Nation of Islam in 1975, she renamed the University of Islam schools the Sister Clara Muhammad Schools in her honor. As of today, there are roughly 75 Clara Muhammad schools still operating in the United States. Malcolm X, Rahimullah, a man who needs little introduction, was also influenced and molded by a female role model like Sheikh Ahmed Baba and Almami Abdul Qadir Khani before him. His role model was his sister Ella Collins, in fact, Rahimullah, who he described as the first really proud black woman I have ever seen, stating in his autobiography, Rahimullah. I had never been so impressed with anybody. During his teenage years, he moved to Roxbury to live with her, and she was his guardian until he turned 21. Many years later, when Malcolm left the Nation of Islam in 1964, she had already converted to Orthodox Islam years before him and was the one that paid for him to make his life changing Hajj journey, the very pilgrimage that marked the transformation of Malcolm X into the international figure of El Hajj Malik Shabazz, Rahimullah. She also paid for his funeral, Rahimullah, and business expenses after his tragic assassination, and took over his organization, of Afro-American unity, including his project of giving 35 scholarships from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt, and from the University of Ghana to black students wishing to study overseas. The lives of these women, though only a small sample of the realities they represent, are a testament to the pivotal roles that female scholarship and sainthood have played and continue to play in the African Islamic tradition, and by extension, the diaspora. Their accomplishments formed the backbones of the society they helped shape and were rarely limited to solely the religious realm, but included momentous achievements in arenas like community development, social activism, and diplomacy. They, and countless unmentioned others, are refreshing alternatives to commonly narrated stereotypes that currently define how Muslim womanhood is perceived in the popular zeitgeist. How you say that?
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist. From traditional backgrounds and communities, they serve as inspiring blueprints for Muslims the world over. I hope that in concluding this book with their captivating narratives, I have honored the humble attempt with which I have undertaken the extremely momentous task of attempting to summarize the deep relationship between Black history and Islam. I pray that their stories and those of their compatriots in Blackness, countless figures beyond Bilal, a few before him, illuminated through the pages of the Qur'an, others honored by companionship of the Prophet alongside him, multitudes privileged with upholding his legacy after him, and I expect many more still, shepherding that legacy into our present day and future, serve as a window into this often understudied and overlooked subject. And I ask that we allow ourselves to never forget that these powerful individuals were not foreign anomalies who contributed to Islam, but were rather central and foundational icons of its most epics as the global history of Islam, as we should now know it. It is know it is a story that cannot and did not exist without these black prophets, sahabas, scholars, warriors, and saints.
Alhamdulillah. And that's the way he ended off the book. And that's the way we're going to end this particular class. Are there any questions? Alhamdulillah. There will not be any class next Sunday because of the Islamic Unity Conference. So, inshallah, we will resume in 2 weeks. Go ahead, Samira.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
There's a
alaikum
quote,
salam.
I'm not sure when it was said, but it's something that I have actually hung up in my office. It was a quote by Al Hajj Malik Al Shabazz, Rahimullah. He said, if you are in a country that is progressive, the women is progressive. If you're in a country that reflects the consciousness towards the importance of education, it is because the woman the woman is aware of the importance of education. But in every backward country, you'll find the women are backward. In every country where education is not addressed, it's because the women don't have education. That's all.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's the same quote that we put in our book, Tanbil Ummah. If we
Mm.
look on the page 19, this is our translation of the book that the Sheikh who wrote uh, with regards to the women's right to education. The Sheikh had to write several times during his time, making sure that people didn't encroach upon women's right to a basic education. And let me know if this is the same for in every country that you go to. Usually, the degree of progress can never be separated from the woman. If you are in a country that's progressive, the woman is progressive. If you are in a country that reflects the consciousness towards the importance of education, it is because the woman is aware of the importance of education. But in every backward country, you'll find the women are backward. And in every country where education is not stressed, it's because the women don't have education. Is that
Yeah,
the same quote or a similar one?
same quote. You just added something in the beginning of it.
Oh, okay. Alhamdulillah. That's why you see these great scholars like the Sheikh, like Sheikh Ibrahim Niyas. This is why they made sure, number one, their own daughters were educated, and they made sure that every other daughter under their authority, every woman under their authority, they made sure that they had complete opportunity to study. So whenever you see any group of Muslims trying to push off the women, like we don't need the women to study, whatever, they're backwards. They don't understand this thing. And most likely their cultural expression of Islam is being borrowed from someone else who have long track records of trying to stifle the growth of their women. But that's not our tradition. I said before, any successful organization that you see that black folks have, you peel back the layers, it's some women that's in charge or have key positions of in it. You want to see our stuff fail? Stifle the women. Alhamdulillah. There's no questions. You're kind of quiet out there. So we'll end, and inshallah, we'll post the next book very soon, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.